Man, he is really garnering more attention than we would have ever believed, isn't he? Today we're heading over to the Nashville Predators and diving into the latest with one Steven Stamkos and talking about which new teams have been linked to the former Tampa Bay Lightning superstar, a guy who just 4 years ago was a 100-point scorer in the NHL, posting up 42 goals and 64 assists. That was, believe it or not, Stamkos' only 100-point season in the National Hockey League. Yeah, he had 60 goals all the way back in 2011-12, but only 37 assists that year. So he got close, but didn't quite reach there. The next few years saw Stamkos be the captain that he was in Tampa, and he was very good, and he was a point-per-game guy. He had 81 points in 79 games his final season with the Lightning. But then they decided to go a different direction. They said, hey, we'll take the younger Gensel over you. You're old. Sorry, Stammer. You're our captain. Not anymore. And then he ended up signing an $8 million AAV deal for 4 years with the Nashville Predators. Now, year one, as we had said, pretty meh year. He did decline in points, 53 points in 82 games, but the Predators kind of stink, so you could understand why that happened. This year, though, 2 points in 12 games, a goal and an assist, on pace for 14 points in 82. Steven Stamkos is going through the ringer right now. But despite that fact, he is still being labeled as a primary trade candidate for a bunch of NHL teams as a center left wing. Let's go out there and read Spectre's hockey from earlier this morning because Lyle Richardson gives us the scoop from around the hockey bubble. Let's go out there and read this. Could the Predators trade Steven Stamkos? There was a piece published by Adam Prateau on the Hockey News suggesting trade speculation could arise about Stamkos if the Predators don't improve. They've started the season 4-6-2, and the 35-year-old forward has just 2 points. Prateau noted that Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman recently said he could see a scenario where both sides meet to consider their options. Stamkos is in the second year of a 4-year deal with an AAV of $8 million. He also has a full no-movement clause. If Stamkos is willing to accept a trade, Prateau believes it'll be to a veteran-laden Stanley Cup contender. He suggested the Carolina Hurricanes, LA Kings, and Toronto Maple Leafs as possible destinations. Now, I'm just sitting here thinking about where in the hell would a guy like Steven Stamkos fit with this Hurricanes team? You're finally starting to get some offense out of Andrei Svechnikov. That's pretty good. But this fourth line, does it really need a Steven Stamkos? Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Mark Jankowski, Bradley Nadeau. I get that Stamkos was never really the fastest guy, but I just don't really see him fitting with the style of hockey that Rod Brind'Amour likes to play for his team, unless Brind'Amour decides, okay, we're going to have our own version of Alex Ovechkin. Stammer, you're just going to be on this power play spot. Our job is to get the puck to you, and it doesn't matter how many assists you get, just score 25 goals and we'll be happy. Like, if that is the way that Brind'Amour decides to take this Hurricanes team with a Stammer in the lineup, I'd be really surprised. But it might be the only way I think he could actually fit with this organization, considering the system and considering the style. Ultimately, the LA Kings, I feel, there seems to be a little bit of a better fit here. Mostly because I look at all the older guys that the Kings have. Philippe Deneau is still effective. Corey Perry is starting to produce a lot of points as a fourth liner. And of course, you have some other older guys. Drew Doughty, Team Canada staple alongside of Steven Stamkos. There seems to be more of a personnel fit, I'd say, with the LA Kings and Stammer. And if they really wanted to push it, hey, they already have Corey Perry, who happens to be slow and right-handed. So Stamkos would be providing them with a little bit more of what they already have. It's not like they're not experienced with that. Stammer, though, I think is a little bit more of a goal scorer than Perry is from distance versus in tight like Perry can do. Perry also is on that second power play unit, so you could get a pretty big boost by adding a Steven Stamkos to the LA Kings. Meanwhile, the Toronto Maple Leafs, obviously this is going to be the name that everybody links to because, hey, Stammer was rumored to be going to Toronto back when he needed to re-sign with Tampa all those years ago. The idea was that Stamkos, who was in the prime of his career at the start of this $8.5 million AAV deal in 2016, back in this time frame, I mean, he was a stud. The NHL was going through some down scoring times, so even though these numbers don't seem impressive, believe me, they were. And Stammer almost took his services for the next 8 years over to Toronto, which would have changed the entire course of NHL history. Imagine Stamkos with Matthews and Marner, and then if they ended up getting Tavares still after, that would have been overkill. All the first overall picks heading over to the Maple Leafs. Although you can say, hey, if they had Stamkos, they wouldn't have had the money to sign Tavares, which is fair as well. William Nylander, John Tavares, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, and Stammer. You could have that 5 as a power play unit, and nobody would bat an eye. Who needs defense when you have 5 of the best offensive players and most overpaid contracts in the league? But if Stammer were to head over to Toronto nowadays, obviously there would need to be an adjustment of expectations. He is not that 60-goal scorer anymore. He's a lot worse than that. So look at Toronto trying to take on these reclamation projects from Dakota Joshua over to potentially Steven Stamkos. But that's not all that the latest on Stammer has to offer, as there was also a piece published on The Province as Paul Chapman referenced a report by Czech TV's Rick Dhaliwal where the latter claimed the Canucks had poked around on Stamkos. Chapman observed that Stamkos is a shell of his former self. Given the Canucks' injury status, however, it makes sense to kick tires on everyone. Now, let's go out there and read Spector's note because this provides some interesting analysis too. Stamkos' production has declined noticeably since his final season with Tampa 2 years ago. He's getting plenty of playing time amongst the Predators' top lines, but his scoring touch is no longer there. A move to a better club might help Stamkos regain his form, but his contract makes him an expensive gamble. Interested teams could insist that the Predators retain up to half of his cap hit to facilitate a trade. As for the proposed destinations, Hurricanes GM Eric Tulsky is expected to make a big swing for a superstar this year. However, he has pursued superstars in their late 20s who are in the primes of their careers, such as Rantanen and Marner. Tulsky is unlikely to go after a declining star in his mid-30s with an expensive deal. Stamkos might welcome a trade to the Kings or the Leafs, but they don't look like Stanley Cup contenders. They lack salary cap space, which is also an issue for the Canucks. So, getting into the if it's actually possible, doesn't seem like something that either of these teams would be able to just do off the cuff. They would really need to do some cap gymnastics, and Nashville would probably have to retain in order for this to go through. So you can fill in the blanks in your brain as to just how much teams are going to have to give up in order to get Stammer onto their squad. They're going to have to free up some money, but how exactly do they do that? These teams don't necessarily have players to spare, especially the Vancouver Canucks, with all of the guys already on the IR. I mean, desperate times call for desperate measures, which is why Vancouver's even interested in Stammer in the first place. But they would really need to do something with their dollars in and dollars out if they wanted to make it work. Hell, send Evander Kane over to Nashville. Do a 1-for-1 with 50% salary retained. Maybe Vancouver tosses a young player in there, and Stamkos becomes a second liner with Vancouver. If he's able to regain that scoring form, then honestly, I do think there's value, but you just don't know if he's able to do that. 27 goals last year, you wouldn't expect that to go away right away, but it seems like it has. So, in terms of the Hurricanes, the Kings, the Maple Leafs, or the Vancouver Canucks, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Steven Stamkos trade update? And do you actually see him getting moved to any of these teams? If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit the like button. If you didn't, the dislike button is down there for you as well. Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.